legends, and welcome to Unbeatable You, where we connect, thrive, and conquer. I'm your host, Brett Robbo, and I'm super grateful for your valuable time. So let's just dive straight in. Keep thriving and enjoy. All right, we are back. We are back on the podcast, and not only are we back after a little bit of a pause, we're back with a bit of a difference. We've got a different name, we've got a new look, and I'm probably going to bring a new, fresh oomph of an energy to the podcast again as well. So before we dive into, actually, not only are we back in your ear holes with the podcast, now we're in front of your eyeballs as well. So you can watch this podcast on YouTube, and I'll give you the details of that towards the end of this episode. Before I explain why this podcast name has changed, I first want to start by acknowledging you legendary listeners, because a bit over 5 years ago now when I launched this podcast, I had 0 listeners, obviously. And I launched it without knowing how it will be received. I just gave all of my energy, my heart, my soul, my love into the podcast in this trust that it was going to make some sort of a difference. It was from a deeper purpose. And when I was reflecting on this evolution of the podcast, it just kept coming back to me of how abundantly grateful I am for you listeners. Because honestly, without you, I wouldn't be putting a podcast out there if I didn't consistently get the feedback that I get from people who are either starting back at the start and not realizing that this podcast even existed and getting so much value from it as we move through, or people who are messaging me saying, I've listened to most episodes 3 or 4 times, or I've listened to this one episode 5 times, and here's how it's changed my life. Here's how it helped my sister. Here's the people that I've sent it to. Getting messages like that, it consistently warms my heart, because that's not about me. That's about the energy. It's about the message. It's about the value within the podcast. And it's you legendary listeners absorbing that and making that positive change in your life or in someone else's life. So a massive, massive heartfelt gratitude for you guys for tuning in and for bearing with me for the little bit of a pause. I spoke to someone a couple of days ago on a coaching call, and at the end I said, is there anything else before we wrap up? And he said, actually there is. When's your next episode coming out, Robbo? We're craving it. So that made me feel really good too, that this pause has made some people want it even more. So here we are, we're back. Why the name change? So in episode 192, I released that we were doing an Unbeatable series, and I gave a lot of information about the early days of the podcast and why this podcast existed. So I won't go into deep detail here. I would love it if you haven't listened to that episode. If you don't know my story, go back and listen to episode 192. But essentially, I shifted through some major adversity in my life at the end of 2014, and I got to a point where I realized that I found a deeper purpose, and it was connected to that adversity, and I was doing really well in my career as a high performance coach with Paralympic athletes, and I realized that I needed a trajectory shift to serve my purpose. I was loving what I was doing, but there was a deeper calling from within. So the podcast was part of that evolutionary journey, and you know, it's a really good story for you guys to get an understanding if you're not aware of that. So go back and listen to episode 192, and the name was Your Life of Impact. Because at that time, it was about the message, the value coming through from myself and from the guests to allow you as the listener to create your own life of impact. Because to me, impact was my soul message at that time, where everything was about impact. How do we create an impact in someone else's life? How do we create an impact in the world? And doing a lot of charity work, I was really absorbed in this concept around impact. So Your Life of Impact was the name of the podcast. It sung to me. It resonated with me. It was completely in alignment with me. And 5 years later, not only has the podcast evolved, but I, as a human, have evolved. I'm now a father of 2 toddlers, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at the time of this recording, almost 2 and almost 4. And for all you parents out there, you'd be having a laugh saying, oh, I know exactly what you're going through behind closed doors. And for all you non-parents out there, I'll say, yes, it's true. It's bloody challenging. But not only just in fatherhood, as a husband, as a coach, through other life experiences, I've evolved. And I've noticed also that the community that I work with and share this value with has also evolved. So it makes sense for the podcast, for the evolution of the podcast, for this name change. So Unbeatable You is the unbeatable philosophies is around living our unbeatable life. Unbeatable You is your ability to handle challenges, handle the daily stress, handle the major adversities and not let them beat you. Unbeatable, to live unbeatable, is not to be immune to the daily stresses like toddlers and any other stresses that might be in your life. You're not going to be immune to the major adversities in your life or the regular challenges. You will not be immune because you're a human being. The Unbeatable Philosophies is about understanding ourselves at a deeper level. It's about understanding our energy levels, our mindset, our ability, our adaptability intelligence. It's about understanding ourselves in group dynamics and the connection with other humans and how that helps us thrive. It's about our relationships, firstly with our relationship with ourselves, our loved ones, our family, our community, the world at large. So Unbeatable You is an accumulation of all the work over the years from my short, almost 37 years on the planet, combined with me seeking and absorbing an abundance of wisdom from my mentors who have often got almost double the time on this planet, learning through the people that I work with, that I connect with, even just general conversations and really understanding all of that and bringing it all together to allow people to experience what it feels like to live an unbeatable life. And those philosophies now make up my core aspect of the coaching that I do with my one-on-one performance coaching, with my group coaching. It comes through in the presentations that I give. And I want to bring it through this podcast as well, not just from me, but from the guests that I bring onto the show. Unbeatable You is not just a podcast name. It's not just a philosophy. It's a way of life. Looking at the things that we're already doing in our daily life, how we think, how we feel, how we connect, our movement, our exercise, our energy levels, our nutrition, our relationships, our businesses, our families, looking at all of those concepts and understanding what is it that allows people to experience a lot of stress, a lot of challenge, a lot of adversity, and not let that beat them. So that's what I am thriving on in my life. That's what I'm frothing on, I should say, in my life. And a little personal experience on that. At the back end of last year, my gorgeous wife and my two toddlers and I moved back from Sweden to Australia after almost 2 years abroad. And we had one of the most challenging periods of our life. For the last quarter of last year, we were just hit with all of these challenges that were out of our control. And it really rocked us a lot of the time. And we were using a lot of our community, our network, our philosophies, and, doing some foundations, and it was getting us through. In those moments, I definitely was not thriving. I was challenged by it. I was hit by it. And in actual fact, last year I hit my rock bottom, which I'll share a lot more about in an upcoming episode. But for my rock bottom, mentally, emotionally, I was cooked. I could not see how I could handle more of these challenges coming at me. And I had an experience in that moment of rock bottom. And it was a bizarre experience because I was surrounded by my beautiful family and a supportive community and living in a really great spot. But in here, I was at rock bottom. So what I came to realize also was that previously, after moving through major adversity in my life, and I had a lot of experience around that to bring, and people were inspired by my story of shifting through that and other people's stories of major adversity. However, over the years, what I've learned is that it's the daily challenges. It's the small stresses, the relationship tensions. It's the kids. It's the demands of work. It's whatever else might be happening in the world that's putting these stress and these pressures on us. It's how do we navigate those and stay standing and not be beaten by those? To me, that's what's really inspiring. Because if I can shift through major adversity, but I can't shift through these consistent challenges that are going to keep showing up, and for periods of life, they're going to get thicker and thicker, then I'm not really living up to the unbeatable philosophies. I'm not really living up to my potential to really step in and use these challenges to help me grow. So in those moments of despair and that rock bottom, it really became clear to me that, it was kind of after that. What I did was I sat with that and I let it be my experience for a while, and I let it be my experience. I did some processing. And then coming out of it, I realized, actually, you know what? I feel like I'm more valuable to the world after going through experiences like this, rather than just the experiences of major adversity and understanding how to grieve and shift through all of that. So with that came this kind of aha moment. And around that, I was already building the unbeatable philosophies. And that's why I feel so grateful and even proud to be able to bring that experience to you guys, because to embody something, to embody an experience and then be able to share it with someone else, what I've found is with the coaching and people on the other side of that is when you're sharing an experience with me, whether it's children challenges, business challenges, rock bottom, I can empathize from a place of actual embodiment. And I think that's pretty special for me, because the mentors that I learn from and the coaches that I learn from that I really get that energy from are people who have embodied experience. So within the podcast and this name change, the thing that will remain is bringing on inspirational humans and bringing on a lot of different perspectives, a bit more openness with some of the early chats that you'll hear that will let it go a little bit wild with some things. And also a bit more time from me, bringing you some more solo episodes. I get that, I'll be honest, me sharing my experiences is part of my therapy, but also the feedback is that you guys love to hear that and connect with that. So I'll bring you a few more of those. And what you will also see if you're on YouTube, so if you're only listening to this, jump on YouTube, follow the channel Brett Robbo Coach. What you'll also see is that I'll be coming to you from this awesome studio in Burleigh on the Gold Coast, Studio 6, as often as we can with the guests and with my solo episodes. But I won't be limited to if I'm in the Swedish wilderness and feel pulled to record an episode in the slugboard around a fire like I did with someone many years ago, or traveling around anywhere. So what will remain true is the value. I will always aim from a purposeful meaning, like deeper meaning. The purpose behind this podcast is really, really strong, to enhance and optimize my grandparents' legacy through impacting the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. That deeper purpose remains. There's a name change, the purpose remains, which means therefore the value remains and is enhanced. So whether it's from this studio, whether it's from the wilderness somewhere around the world, you will be connected with some inspirational guests and be able to have this value in your ear holes for the ongoing foreseeable future. If you're on YouTube, please leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of it. We'd love to hear from you. I'm new to the YouTube world, jumping on here and recording these. So let me know if you think, I'd rather just listen to you, Robbo. When I watch the YouTube, it's not as exciting. You've got a good face for radio. I won't be offended. You cannot offend me. If I'm offended, that's my choice. But just stay connected, because what I would also love, whether you're watching or listening, is let me know who you would like to hear from. As this podcast now evolves, I've got some amazing guests lined up that you will hear from, but I would also love to know from you listeners, who are some people that you believe can bring some great insights and great value around these unbeatable philosophies, who are living unbeatable lives. And I will do my best I'll research them and find the fits and bring on some of those guests. I would love to hear from you of who you guys would be inspired and excited to hear from. So please reach out to me on social media at Brett Robbo Coach, or through the YouTube platform as well. Leave me a comment who you would love to hear from. That'd be a great way for me to hear from you. So as we wrap up, you're about to dive into the next episodes of Unbeatable You. You will be glad to hear that some of the previous guests are coming back on to share some more value, and there's also some new guests coming up, and some pretty impactful kind of stories that are coming through the show. I want to finish in the same way that I started, by saying that I'm extremely grateful that you guys are choosing your time. I understand the value of time and the limited resource of time that we have. I'm extremely grateful that you're choosing to listen to this podcast, to the inspirational guests, to Unbeatable You in your valuable time. Finishing in the same way that I started, with that gratitude, and it's also because I'm addicted to gratitude. So thanks again for tuning in. Welcome back, or welcome to this podcasting journey, and I'm excited to keep bringing you value. I want to finish by saying, when we look at Unbeatable You and about implementing these philosophies into your life, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? This is your opportunity to live your unbeatable life. Let's do this.